Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar. We have a very special guest with us today, BJ Rosenfeld. Thank you very much for being on the Jewish View.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm BJ Rosenfeld, a local author and well-known speaker. Author of The Chameleon in the Closet.
Well, let me show the book over here. Here's the book, The Chameleon in the Closet, as BJ just told us. And that's what we're going to, the theme of this show, we're going to, after generally a synopsis what the book is, and then we're going to get into it exactly the deeper ideas of what it portrays. So really, that's the first question as we see what the book is. A conservative Jewish mother reaches out to her Orthodox sons. So tell us about the book and, you know, who you as a conservative, you're the mother, of course, a conservative Jewish mother. What happened awfully to your children that turned out to be Orthodox sons and to Jews, and how you relate to them, and that's what we're going to get into. So tell us just about, you know, exactly the situation, what motivated you to write a book about this.
Well, what happened was I was very, very proud. My older son got into Princeton.
Yes.
I was really, really proud. And then he decided to work at a summer camp. And in order to work at the summer camp, he had to take a course in Judaic studies. The course wound up being taught by an Orthodox rabbi. To you, that makes a lot of sense and you understand it. To me, I have to tell you, Rabbi, just because I'm Jewish does not mean I had ever met anyone who was Orthodox until my older son started to become Orthodox.
Maybe we can define, you know, like you're Jewish, of course, but what does it mean? You never, you know, you're Jewish, and I know you as a Jewish-minded person. So what does it mean that you never met someone Orthodox for a person? I mean, what's your Jewish observance, and what was like so strange about an Orthodox person that you never met?
Well, I observed certain traditions. For example, our house is kosher, but there are no kosher restaurants here. So my husband and I go out to dinner all the time. We eat non-kosher food. We raised our children that way. We would go to services. My husband and I founded our conservative synagogue locally. And there are certain things that we abide by, but we drive to services. In the Orthodox world, that is not something that is done. I was told that I could wear pants or a skirt when I go to services. In the Orthodox world, especially the one that my son was coming into, wearing pants, that's for men. Women wear skirts and dresses. And if there are certain stringencies, well, first of all, Rabbi, I need to explain, all I knew about were the 10 Commandments, the 10 biggies. I didn't know there are 613.
Well, you knew it was a little more. You say you keep kosher, and
Yeah,
that's not part
but
of the 10 Commandments. So.
Yeah, but it just didn't sink in. I didn't realize that there's so much involved. So when my son started to get into this, I started realizing there was a lot more than I expected of Judaism.
Explain a little bit. I mean, your son obviously is intelligent. I know him to be intelligent anyway. He went to Princeton, so that itself is a given. But, you know, so obviously you raised him in the way you saw Judaism. What turned him on, so to speak, saying, hey, this Orthodox, I'm going to get, like you're saying, a lot stricter and a lot different. What made him turn on to a more Orthodox Jewish lifestyle?
He decided to teach, to become a counselor at a local Jewish summer camp in the Capital District of Albany. And in order to work there, he had to take a course in Judaic studies. So this course was taught by this Orthodox rabbi. And my husband and this rabbi clicked. Suddenly, we were calling our son on the phone on a regular basis, and our son was answering the phone, giving us 1 or 2 word answers. Something was changing. I got scared. Thoughts of Jim Jones, cult, came into my head. I didn't know what to do. So I called the university. I got the phone number of the rabbi, and I spoke to him. And as it turned out, he was so nice, we spoke for about an hour. And I said, and one of the things that we talked about was the fact that my son had stopped coming home. He was spending all his time with this Orthodox rabbi. The rabbi said, don't worry about it, your son will be home next weekend. Sure enough, my son came home. But as time went on, The more time my son spent learning with this rabbi, the more he kept asking me to do certain things. Suddenly my house wasn't kosher enough. And I felt insulted. I raised him. I was the one who decided how my house should be. And here he was saying, Mom, you can't buy that product. The letter K on the box, that does not mean it's kosher. There were a lot of issues that we argued about. And to be honest, at this point, I don't even recall what most of them were. But at that point, they were very, very important to me. And I started getting scared. I noticed that my son had changed, and suddenly everything that I had believed about living a good life was no longer the way things were in his mind. He was telling me how I should live my own life. And he was distancing himself from me. And my concern was, the last thing I ever wanted to do was lose my son. And I knew it was happening. So I thought deep into myself, and I made a choice that I would start listening to him, that I would start hearing what he was telling me, and I even started asking him to explain to me what I should be buying. And so now, whenever I go to the supermarket, I carry a little card with all the kosher approving agencies that are marked on the boxes of foods that I can buy.
So you change your whole kosher kitchen?
Absolutely.
For your sons?
Absolutely. Yeah, and then there was the time that another issue came up. My younger son started to become more interested in becoming more religious. And so suddenly...
From his brother?
From his brother, and also because of a trip that he had gone on to Israel. So the two of them decided one day that they were going to take they were going to take everything in my kitchen to the mikveh. Now, I need to tell you, all I knew about a mikveh was from what I had read in a book. There was a book written quite a while ago by Faye Kellerman. It's a murder mystery. Murder in the Ritual Bath.
Yeah.
So my sons are saying, hey, Mom, do you mind if we take all your stuff for cooking to the mikveh? And what goes through my mind is, wait a second, ritual bath, that's where women go to bathe. You want to take my stuff and put it where, it just didn't make any sense. And they said, Mom, there's a side for cooking utensils too. And my comment was, I still don't get it. But if it works for you, go right ahead, just put everything back.
Let me explain to the audience exactly what's happening.
Yes.
Your sons are not, as you say, mashuggy, crazy.
Yes.
They're following the Jewish law. And that is, there's one aspect of kosher, for example, different dishes. You have to have two separate dishes, one for milk, one for meat, because they cannot not only be eaten together, they cannot be cooked together. So an Orthodox Jewish person, a Torah home, has two sets of dishes and silverware, milk and meat. Now, the second step is just that food is not just, nice chicken soup to be Jewish, but there's a holiness part of the Jewish home. So it's not just a lifestyle, there is a holiness. And you want to remove, and not that it's impure, it's just a plate or it's just a fork, but on the other hand, to bring it up to a holy level, so you put that in a ritual area, in the ritual bath. And that's, you just dunk it in water and take it out. Or sometimes it's a stream, whatever. We won't get into all the details here, but that brings your whole kitchen, even though it's just food, but by a Jewish person, it's a mitzvah to this food, not that food. Mm-hmm. You say a blessing beforehand, you say a blessing afterwards. You're raising up just a regular old hamburger, which all it is on a Tuesday. It's not a holiday feast, it's not a Sabbath feast. Just a regular old hamburger on a Tuesday, it becomes part of a holy experience. The kosher, the blessings, and that's where the mikveh comes into play. Mm-hmm. So they're getting more, as BJ is trying to say, that they're learning more and more. Yeah. Well, you know about kosher, and like what we just said, I don't know how many even people who keep kosher even know about this.
I didn't. It was brand new to me.
So therefore, they're just they're learning, and then they're just saying, well, we just learned it, and you're coming along with us for the ride over here just for that
Right.
idea. So everything seems a little strange.
It was strange, and as your viewers read my book, The Chameleon in the Closet, they will learn more about choices that we parents should be making, should stop and think about when we hear our kids coming in the door saying, Mom this and Mom that. And what I've been learning is a parent's love for their children is letting them be who they are.
Well, I think that's important. Again, I have experience with my mother-in-law and or my in-laws that they're German Jews and very intellectual. They have PhDs and they're very smart, and they came from Germany, so they're just not into the American culture. They have 2 children. One's my wife, who also has this experience of going from a very, very Reform. They didn't even go to Reform temple, and now became Hasidic. And the brother went the other way. He's from Boston, Cambridge. He's Mr. Boston Red Sox, Mr. Boston Celtics. He follows every game. He goes to the games. And my mother-in-law doesn't know if Celtics is a basketball team or a baseball team. So again, you have this in all kinds of diverse areas. But saying all that, I'm as a rabbi, so I meet, people with problems. Not everything a child does is good either also. Sometimes they're getting into things and the parent says no, 0. So it's a hard call, because I know people like yourself, and, kudos to you, that it is difficult as you're going through almost the humorous, but I know it is difficult, changeover, but some people just say, leave me alone, this is the way I do it, just get away from me, and, they put up a lot of barriers. So, yeah, obviously you have children across the spectrum, you have parents across the spectrum. That's why I personally think this book is important, because parents just don't know what to do with it, and a lot of times they just put a barrier. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, and leave me alone. And you went along with it, which is very good. And even with siblings, you have that many times where, like we said, your younger son say, hey, the older son older brother's doing something, others saying, you do your thing, fine for you, just leave me alone. And you have that a lot. And I think it's important that people know how to get along. But just saying that, sometimes you get people just give in to their children saying, okay, then they're doing something a little bit mashuggy, not the right thing, and think, well, what can you do? I'll just, don't accept it. You're the parent, and teach them. So it's a hard call sometimes, and that's why you have to have advice. Is it good, or it's no good, or it's wrong or right? So you can't just put a blanket statement on saying just go along with your kids. They're into craziness sometimes. Unfortunately, some kids get into real crazy business. So that's where the parent has to step in. Hey, this is just unacceptable.
I agree with you there. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so it's an important point over here. So I just other things. I know. Have you met other parents? Have you talked in general that have to go through this, and maybe how do they take it? Like I say, I know for myself, when people advise with me, they come with all things. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm so glad. There's nothing wrong. Just putting in a commercial, nothing your sons did was terrible. And that's why I always pitch to anybody in Jews and tell me what am I asking for? Tell me what's so terrible. So you pray, what is that? Killing someone? So you pray or keep kosher, on and on. You're resting on Sabbath. You're not watching a football game Saturday afternoon.
I wouldn't watch football game anyway, so no problem there. Yankee baseball, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But, just saying, what are they doing so terrible? But on the other hand, some people take it as own, like you're in a way maybe saying it in a front, rejecting everything I am and your grandparents taught you, and they're totally, totally insulted by it.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened was, recently when I was speaking in Detroit.
Really? You've been talking? I know you've been talking around the Capital District. I didn't know.
I've spoken in Detroit. I've spoken in Baltimore.
Oh, very nice.
I spoke last week in the 5 in the 5 towns on Long Island. I'm getting around.
Oh, really?
The message is getting around.
I see your name in the papers around Capital District. I didn't know.
No, yes, and thank you. I really enjoy speaking to groups. My goal in speaking and in writing the book is to help parents and children stay connected. That's my ultimate goal. So in Detroit, bringing up what you mentioned, I was shocked after my presentation. A woman came up to me in tears. And her comment was, she was in the same boat that I was, but from her perspective, having a religiously observant son was like having a death in the family.
Really?
And I was shocked. Because not only was she rejecting her son, I mean, I don't know how she could do that to her son. How she could feel that way. What I understood was, from my perspective, when my son started becoming more observant, it is culture shock. But you have to make a decision. You have to decide for yourself what you are going to do. How important is it to keep the connection? And what I do, and what I tried to explain to the woman, was you need to look for the chameleon inside yourself. You need to decide what, not that your child is forcing you to do something. My children never told me, you must dress this way, you must do this, you must do that. But I knew that I had to make certain decisions in order to keep connected with my children. And this woman didn't know what to do. So she promised me that she would at least read my book and then get in touch with me.
What was her background? I mean, she was so affronted by this.
It's
so
not
insulted.
unusual, though. This is really not unusual. I've heard it from a lot of people. Her background was Reform, not as observant as my family, but not necessarily completely unreligious. I didn't ask her all of her details, but I've also spoken to other people who've told me in the local community that their children have become more religiously observant, and these mothers have decided, it's my house, I'm doing things my way. You don't want to come and visit? Don't bother. The kids at the moment are still coming to visit, but I really wonder how long they're going to keep visiting, and what a tremendous loss it would be for the mother. And I don't know if parents actually realize what we do to our children by not hearing what they are telling us, by not allowing them to feel the respect that they really do deserve. As our children get older, basically what happens, Rabbi, and I'm sure you've had this experience, we raise our children with a certain image of how they're going to be. And when they don't live up to that image, we have to make choices. Are we going to accept them as who they are? Or are we going to force our decisions on them? And this is what this mother was doing. She was not willing to listen to her children and hear her son when he made his decision.
It'd be interesting, like keeping up with people, because I know it's a fairly new book, and you've been a few years into the, your children.
Right.
It's only been a few years. A lot of times they tell people, wait for the grandchildren. They'll melt, they'll melt once they see the grandchildren. Because, the children, you kid, you're a brat, what are you doing over here? But a grandchild, the parents, the grandparents then will melt. I mean, it'd be interesting, even keeping up with these people, and maybe if they do soften up their opinion. Because like I say, sometimes it is so strange, number one, but on the other hand, if just people like yourself just take a step back, what's so terrible? What are they doing? In the mafia, what are they, drug runners? Where I should be so upset. What are they doing? It's insulting. You want your children to, follow your ways. So it's very insulting probably in that sense.
In the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, but after a while, listen, and like you say, I do advise people and children saying, show, love to your parents. Like, you hold by them, you love them still. All right, you found your own way, and maybe it is a little insulting to them, but you still hold by them, and that's really, I think that's really, and to get along with a person. I mean, that's the way I Rabbi, you don't like me because I'm not that observant. I says, well, you know, you're imposing. I never said that to you. And you just have to overcome this kind of hesitation that people said, oh, yeah, I'm sure you don't like me. Something's wrong with me. I never said such a thing. And I don't feel that way. And you have to just show, and I think that's maybe a lot of times what parents are feeling kids, oh, you think I'm wrong and I don't know what I'm doing.
Absolutely,
and if
yeah.
the kids, on the other hand, shows, you know, I hold by you, I like you, there's a lot of good things about you that I like. It's just, you know, the Jewish things, I have to find my own way. Then I think it melts a lot of the barriers. I think that'd be important.
Yeah, it does. It does. You're right. I was talking to a mother recently, and she was a widow, and her son had recently come home from the military.
Jewish people?
No, not a Jewish family. Not a Jewish family.
I do know a few Jewish people
no,
that
no,
do
no,
are
no,
in the
not
military,
a Jewish
but
family.
all right.
I don't know if
That's
he had
a different
enlisted
thing.
or what the situation was. But this woman did say before her son was in the military, he was very easygoing, very accepting of everything. Whatever went on, could go with the flow. Came home from the military, and now everything's got to be done a certain way. Or he's very, very uncomfortable, and he's back living with mom.
Well, in which way, for example? I mean,
For example, the kitchen needs to be cleaned up.
because he's used to a military.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yes, all that, everything like that. And initially, just like I argued with my son, this woman, I mean, I was dealing with 20-some-odd-year-old. She's dealing with a 30-some-odd-year-old, or even older. And they argued an awful lot. And she made the decision. It took her a while to become a chameleon and to realize that keeping her son connected with her was important. And he wasn't asking that much to clean the kitchen, even if he helped clean the kitchen, just certain little changes that needed to be made, and she is so happy now.
Since it goes the other, I remember talking to a young Jewish person who enlisted as soldier, so says, how does your parents like it? She says, they really like it.
Really?
Well, because he said, this is interesting because you said about slob. So he says, I used to always keep my room a slob, you know, a teenager. And he says, now, you know, because I'm military, it's always, hey, look, your room is always clean now when you come home.
I hear you, yeah.
So they liked it over. I remember this one.
No, I understand. I hear it from parents all over. Another woman came up after me after a presentation, after I had been speaking, because I asked the audience if each person could think of an instance in which he or she has been a chameleon. One mother came up to me. She is, again, not a Jewish mother. She's the mother of 7. Her 4 youngest are girls. She raised them Catholic. She thought she gave them a very good Catholic background. And I am listening, and okay. Her older son is now married to an Episcopalian, so she is now the mother of an Episcopalian son, and the grandchildren are being raised that way. The second son is a lapsed Catholic. The third son, another decision. Then came the daughters. One daughter married a Lutheran.
There were a lot of intermarriage.
And the youngest child at the age of 16. Now realize this mother is doing her best with all of her children. And she's thinking, oh yeah, and what's going through her brain, she didn't realize what a chameleon, what a wonderful chameleon she was, adapting to all of this, because she really didn't have much choice. And the younger one came along, the youngest, at the age of 16, came out as bisexual.
Yeah.
And the mother
Really?
thought, what the mother said to me was, it took a while to let it all sink in. But she realized this is who her daughter is and was and is. And now I would not say that the mother didn't say they're one big happy family, because there are always issues coming up. But they are doing very, very well. So it happens all over.
That's very interesting, but it's almost really, I mean, you can say it even, really even in Orthodox circles, you have that. I mean, you're going from one Christian to
Right.
another, but, you know, the imposing, this is the way I look at it,
Right.
and other, you know, so really it's interesting. You have it in Christian and you have it in, you say within Jews,
Yeah.
Reform and Conservative,
Sure.
you have it in Orthodox itself. There are so many different types of Orthodox Jews, and each one's trying to impose. And I think that's one of the major issues, how to get along. Instead of imposing, is like what kind of what you use the word chameleon. I usually don't use that word, but it's really the same idea of just, you know, why don't you just, can't you accept the other person for who they are?
That's it,
Instead
yeah.
of imposing what, you know, well, I
Right.
consider right. Maybe you're a good person because, well, I consider right. Well, it's good for me, good for you. I'm not saying you're the, you know, a dog
Sure.
in the street. You don't deserve anything. You do it out of love, but your love is too much imposition on everybody else. So it's interesting. You have that really all over across the board.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's an important thing. Just to even this, I'm saying it, just a general rule for everybody, just to get along. But I think it's beautiful. You know, America, and I'm in history, so I appreciate America more than most, even Americans, as a Jew and as an Orthodox Jew, and knowing history. You know, being so privileged to be in an open society, but. You know, that's what is America different than anywhere else, I think, in the world, is just that idea, you know, we're all okay, and, you know, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, and just let's get along with it without, again, that imposition, imposing. Everybody has to be one religion or one race, and, you know, one creed. Is a lot of countries actually have that. If not, you're like something, you're secondary,
Right,
but
right.
everybody's equal, even though we're all different over here. You know, BJ, we're really in the middle of a good discussion. I want to continue it on. Can you have time for maybe another session? We're just at the end of this. Time is up.
Sure, that would be
So
fine.
right now we're going to take the break, and we want to thank, though, in the meantime, BJ Rosenfeld, and again, her book, The Chameleon in the Closet, just almost maybe a handbook how to get along with your kids. Maybe we can say that. I mean, it's a subtitle of the subtitle, but it is a very important book. Like I say, it crosses all boundaries, literally, because there's a lot of children have a lot of different issues with their parents. You have one of them, which is only good as far as I'm concerned, but in any case, but other people have other issues, and I think it's a very universal problems, obviously not for everybody, but a lot of people have these issues, and it's good that your experience and how to get along, like I say, it's an important idea how to get along with your kids. It's something that everybody, whoever they are and whatever their issues, can learn from. So thank you very much for being on the Jewish View.